The adventure of the red circle. I can see no reason for you to be distressed, nor, being a man whose time is valuable, can I see any reason why I should concern myself with the matter, Mrs. Warren, said Holmes, turning back to the scrapbook into which he had been methodically arranging and pasting the newspaper clippings he had recently cut out. But his visitor was a woman, and therefore both persistent and resourceful. She had no intention of retreating. "You solved the problem for one of my lodgers last year," she said. "Mr. Fairdale Hobbs. Ah, that trivial affair. You are too modest, sir. He cannot praise you highly enough. He is forever recounting how you unraveled the case. When I found myself at my wit's end, I remembered what he had said. I know that if you chose to, you could solve this matter as well." Holmes had a weakness for admiration. To be fair, he was equally susceptible to courtesy. When the two were combined, resistance became futile. With a resigned sigh, he set aside his glue brush and leaned back in his chair. "Very well, Mrs. Warren. Pray proceed. I trust you will not object if I smoke?" "Thank you, Watson Matches. As I understand it, you are disturbed because your new lodger never leaves his room. Let me assure you that were I residing in your house, you might not see me for weeks at a time." "That may be so, sir, but this is quite different. I am frightened, Mr. Holmes. I cannot sleep at night. From early morning until past midnight, I hear him pacing, back and forth, back and forth. Yet I have not once laid eyes upon him. Except for my daughter, I am alone in that house with him, and it is wearing on my nerves." Holmes leaned forward and placed his long, slender fingers gently upon the woman's shoulders. When he chose, he possessed an almost hypnotic power of reassurance. The terror gradually faded from her expression. Her features softened and returned to calm. She took the seat he indicated. "If I am to take up this matter, I must know every detail," he said. "Reflect carefully. The smallest fact may prove the most significant. You mentioned that he arrived 10 days ago and paid 2 weeks' rent in advance, did you not?" "Yes, sir. He asked my terms. I told him I required 50 shillings a week. He rented the 2 small rooms on the upper floor. And then he said that if I agreed to his conditions, he would pay me £5 a week. I am a poor woman, sir, and Mr. Warren's earnings are modest. The sum he offered was considerable to me. He took £10 from his pocket and paid me at once. 'If you comply with my conditions,' he said, 'you shall receive £10 every fortnight. If not, I shall leave.' And what were these conditions? He asked for a key to the house. That is not unusual. Many lodgers request one. He also insisted upon being left entirely to himself and under no circumstances being disturbed. There is nothing remarkable in that. Perhaps not, sir, but his conduct is most strange. For 10 days, he has remained upstairs. Save for the evening he moved in, neither Mr. Warren nor my daughter, nor I have seen him once. Day and night we hear him striding rapidly up and down, yet we never catch sight of him. So he went out on the first evening?" "Yes, sir. He returned late, after we had all gone to bed. When he took the rooms, he informed me he would come in late that night and asked that I not bolt the door. It was well past midnight when I heard him ascend the stairs. And how does he manage his meals? He was very particular about that as well. When he rings the bell, we place his tray upon a chair outside his door. When he has finished, he rings again, and we remove the empty tray in the same manner. If he requires anything else, he writes it upon a small slip of paper in block capitals." "In block capitals, you say?" "Yes, sir. In pencil. He writes only the item he wants. I have brought some with me. Look, here he has written soap. Here, matches. And this one, written this very morning, today's newspaper. I leave the paper outside his door with his breakfast each day." Holmes examined the slip of paper with keen interest. "This is decidedly curious, Watson," he said. "There is something irregular here. I can understand his desire not to be disturbed, but why write in block capitals? Why go to such trouble when ordinary handwriting would suffice? What do you make of it, Watson? He wishes to conceal his handwriting. But why? What consequence if his landlady recognizes it, or does not? Still, you may be correct. And why only single-word messages? I cannot say. An excellent opportunity for deduction. The writing is done with a broad-nibbed violet pencil, a most uncommon instrument. Observe also that the paper has been torn after the word was written. See how the edge of the S in soap is clipped. What does that suggest to you, Watson? Some sort of precaution? Precisely. The remaining portion of the paper may have contained some clue to his identity, perhaps a fingerprint or some other trace. You described him as of medium height, dark and bearded, Mrs. Warren. About 30 years of age. Yes, sir. Around 30, I should think. Can you tell me anything further about him? His English was excellent, though from his accent I believe he was a foreigner. Was he well dressed? Very much so. Like a gentleman. He wore a black suit. Nothing at all conspicuous. Did he give you his name? No. Has any letter or visitor arrived for him? None. But your daughter goes in to clean his room in the mornings, does she not? No, sir. He attends to everything himself. Good heavens! This grows stranger still. Tell me, what luggage did he bring with him? Only a large brown valise, that was all. So we have very little of substance. You are certain nothing else has come out of the room? Think carefully. The woman produced an envelope from her bag and shook it gently. 2 burnt matches and a cigarette stub fell onto the table. I found these on the tray he left out this morning. I have heard that you draw great conclusions from the smallest things, so I brought them. Holmes shrugged lightly. There is little here, he said. The matches were clearly used to light cigarettes. One can tell by the slight charring at the tips. Had they been used for a pipe or cigar, they would have burned halfway down at least. One moment. This cigarette end is of genuine interest. You said the man wore a beard and mustache. Yes, sir. Most remarkable. This cigarette was smoked by a clean-shaven man. Look here, Watson. Even your modest mustache would have left its mark. Could he not have used a holder? No, no. The end is frayed, crushed directly between the lips. Tell me, Mrs. Warren, is it possible that there are 2 persons in your house rather than one? No, sir. The man eats so little I marvel that he survives at all. I fear we require additional material. As matters stand, you have no true grievance. However eccentric your lodger may be, he has caused no overt trouble. He pays generously and desires only privacy. Until we have convincing evidence of wrongdoing, we cannot intrude upon a man's private life. I shall take up the case and keep it under observation. Inform me immediately of any new development. You may depend upon my assistance. When she had left us, Holmes turned to me. There are genuinely intriguing elements here. Watson, we may be dealing with nothing more than a man of peculiar habits, or with something far deeper than appearances suggest. The first possibility we must consider is that the man who rented the rooms is not the same man now occupying them. Why do you think so? Even setting aside the cigarette stub, does it not strike you as significant that the lodger left the house only on the very day he took it? Either he, or someone replacing him, returned at an hour when he could not be seen. We have no proof that the man who came back was the same man who left. Furthermore, the original lodger spoke excellent English. Yet this occupant writes matches in the plural, where a native speaker might naturally request simply a match. It suggests a dictionary consultation, someone uncertain of singular and plural forms. His habit of writing single words rather than full sentences may be intended to conceal limited command of the language. Yes, Watson, these facts strongly imply two different individuals. But why would anyone do such a thing? That, my dear fellow, is precisely what we must discover. I know where to begin. He took up his large scrapbook in which he meticulously pasted daily newspaper advertisements. "Dear me," he muttered as he turned the pages. "What a chorus of lamentation. How they whine and wail. Absurdities, most of them. And yet, for those who enjoy strange pursuits, they are an incomparable resource. Our man lives in strict seclusion and cannot receive letters without compromising his secrecy. How, then, might he receive messages from outside? Through newspaper advertisements, of course. There is no alternative. Fortunately, we need examine only a single publication. Here are the advertisements from the Daily Gazette for the past fortnight. Lady with the black boa at the Prince's Skating Club, irrelevant. Jimmy will not break his mother's heart, of no concern to us. The lady who fainted in the Brixton carriage, if nonsense. My heart burns with longing. They weep endlessly, Watson, endlessly. Now this may concern us. Listen, be patient. I shall find a way to communicate. Until then, watch here. G. Published 2 days after Mrs. Warren's lodger moved in. Does that not seem promising? Our mysterious friend may not write English well, but he understands it. Let us see if there is more. Yes, 3 days later. All progresses well. Be patient and cautious. The clouds will lift. G. Nothing for a week. Then something more explicit. The path clears. If possible, I shall send word. Remember the code. 1A2B. I shall soon inform you. G. That appeared in yesterday's paper. Nothing yet today. The situation fits Mrs. Warren's lodger precisely. If we wait, further developments may illuminate matters. Holmes proved correct. The following morning, I found him standing upon the hearthrug, his back to the fire, a satisfied smile upon his face. He handed me the newspaper. What do you make of this, Watson? Tall red building faced with white stone. 3rd floor. 2nd window from the left. After sunset. Gee, that seems sufficiently explicit. After breakfast, we shall conduct a small reconnaissance near Mrs. Warren's residence. Mrs. Warren, what news do you bring? She burst into the room in great agitation. At once we knew something serious had occurred. The police must handle this, Mr. Holmes, she cried. I have endured enough. That man must leave my house at once. I would have gone straight to him, but I thought it best to seek your counsel first. This has gone too far. My poor husband beaten, if not beaten, then most cruelly handled. By whom? If only I knew. It happened this morning. My husband is a timekeeper at Morton and Waylights in Tottenham Court Road. He leaves before 7, not 10 steps from the house. 2 men came up behind him, threw a coat over his head, and bundled him into a carriage waiting at the curb. They drove him about for an hour before opening the door and casting him out. In his terror, he scarcely noticed the direction they took. When he recovered himself, he found he was upon Hampstead Heath. He returned home in a cab, and now lies upon the sofa. I came straight here. Highly interesting, said Holmes. Did he see the men? Hear them speak? No. The poor man was utterly bewildered. He says it was as though some magical force lifted him and set him down again. There must have been 2 or 3 of them. And you believe this attack is connected with your lodger? We have lived in the same house for 15 years and never experienced anything of the sort. I have tolerated that man long enough. Money is not everything. He must leave today. Pray, restrain yourself, Mrs. Warren. Do not act in anger. I begin to suspect this affair is far more serious than we supposed. Your lodger is clearly in danger. His enemies lay in wait near your house, and in the early morning gloom, aided by the fog, mistook your husband for their intended victim. Once they realized their error, they released him. We can only speculate what fate awaited the man they truly sought. What should I do, Mr. Holmes? I very much wish to see your lodger. That seems impossible without breaking down the door. Each time I descend the stairs after leaving the tray, I hear the key turn in the lock. Yet he must open the door to retrieve it. If we conceal ourselves, we may glimpse him. She considered. There is a small storage closet opposite his room. Perhaps I could arrange a mirror so that by hiding behind the door. Excellent, cried Holmes. At what hour does he take luncheon? At 1 o'clock. Then Dr. Watson and I shall arrive shortly before. For now, good day, Mrs. Warren. At 12:30 we stood upon the steps of her narrow but busy yellow brick house in Great Orme Street, northeast of the British Museum. Being near the corner, it commanded a clear view of House Street, lined with imposing residences. Holmes chuckled and pointed to a building that projected conspicuously from the row. There, Watson, the tall red building faced with white stone. That is our signal station. And since we know the code, our task will not be difficult. The to let notice in the window suggests that our lodger's correspondent intends to occupy those rooms. Yes, Mrs. Warren, what is the situation? I have arranged it as I described. Remove your boots here, and I shall show you in. The hiding place she had prepared for us was admirable. Thanks to the positioning of the mirror, we could sit in the darkened storeroom and command a perfect view of the opposite door. Scarcely had Mrs. Warren withdrawn, and we settled ourselves when we heard the bell ring from the mysterious lodger's room. Moments later, she ascended the stairs carrying a tray. She placed it upon the chair beside the closed door and hurried away. Crouched in the corner, our eyes fixed upon the mirror, we waited. When Mrs. Warren's footsteps faded, we heard the sharp turn of a key in the lock. The handle moved. Two slender hands darted out, seized a tray, and withdrew it swiftly. Almost at once another tray was set down upon the chair. In that fleeting instant, I caught sight of a dark and beautiful face, the eyes wide with fear, glancing toward the half-open storeroom door. Then the door slammed shut, the key turned again, and silence fell. Holmes tugged at my sleeve, and together we slipped noiselessly down the stairs. To the anxious landlady, he said only, I shall return this evening. We could discuss matters better at home. Watson. Once seated in his armchair, he spoke with quiet satisfaction. As you see, my hypothesis was correct. The one who rented the rooms and the one now inside are not the same. Yet I confess I did not anticipate that we should find a woman there, and an extraordinary woman at that. She saw us. She most certainly perceived something that alarmed her. The outline of events is becoming clear, is it not? A couple, fleeing grave danger, sought refuge in London. Judging by their elaborate precautions, the peril must be extreme. The man, having affairs to conduct outside, desired the woman to remain in absolute safety. It was no easy task, yet he devised an ingenious solution. As you observed, even a landlady who delivers her meals daily has no idea that a woman occupies the room. The use of block capitals was meant to conceal her sex. The man cannot visit her openly, for that would betray her location to their enemies. Unable to communicate directly, they resorted to newspaper advertisements. Up to this point, everything is quite logical. But what lies beneath it all? I asked. Holmes smiled faintly. You persist in your scientific thoroughness, my dear fellow. What lies beneath? Mrs. Warren's curious problem has deepened considerably. One thing is certain. This is no simple romantic escapade. You saw the expression on that woman's face when she sensed danger. We know, too, that men assaulted Mr. Warren, mistaking him for the lodger. Given the threats and the extreme secrecy, This is clearly a matter of life and death. Whoever the enemies may be, they evidently do not know that the male lodger has exchanged places with a woman. Otherwise, they would not have abducted Mr. Warren. A most fascinating and complex affair, Watson. Why pursue it further? What does it gain you? What does it gain me? I practice my art for its own sake, Watson. Have you never treated a patient without payment? Yes, but I gained experience. Education never ends, my dear Watson, and the final lessons are often the most instructive. We have before us a case of singular interest. Though it promises neither wealth nor fame, I am determined to solve it. After nightfall, we shall advance another step. When we returned to Mrs. Warren's house, the winter fog of London had drawn its heavy curtain about the streets. The uniform gray was broken only by the yellow squares of light in the windows and the pale halos of the gas lamps. From the darkened room of Mrs. Warren's house, we watched the opposite building. A faint glimmer shone within the darkness. "There is movement across the way," Holmes whispered. Pressing his thin, eager face to the glass, he added, "Yes, I can see the shadow. There, at the window again. He holds a candle. He wishes to be certain she observes him. Now he begins. Since he lit the candle once, that must be how many times? 20? I counted the same. That gives us T, Holmes murmured. So we have at another T. He begins a second word. Tinta, and stops. What can that signify? Attenta? That makes little sense. Perhaps it is at 10 TA, 3 words, and TA the initials of some person. Ah, he begins again. ATT, the same message. Most curious, Watson. Again, at. Why repeat it 3 times? Attenta, how often will he repeat it? There. He withdraws from the window. What do you make of it? A cipher, perhaps. Holmes suddenly chuckled. Not so obscure a cipher, Watson. The message is Italian. The ending in it indicates he addresses a woman. Attenta, beware, or take care, and repeated thrice for emphasis. What do you say? I believe you have it. Undoubtedly. The urgency must be extreme to warrant 3 repetitions. Look, he approaches the window again. Once more we saw the bent silhouette waving the candle within the small pane. This time the signals came more rapidly. We struggled to follow. Pericolo, pericolo. What does that suggest, Watson? Danger, perhaps. Of course. He signals danger. Again, Perry, what's this? Abruptly the signals ceased. The light vanished from the window. The 3rd floor of the tall building became a black band, dividing the illuminated windows above and below. The final warning cry had been cut short. How? And by whom? The same thought struck us both. Holmes sprang from his crouched position by the window. "This is serious, Watson," he cried. "Something is amiss over there. Why should such a message cease so suddenly? We must inform the police. Yet we cannot abandon our post here. Shall we go? Let us first ascertain what we can. There may be a more innocent explanation. Come, Watson, let us see for ourselves what awaits us." As we hastened toward House Street, I glanced back at the building we had left. In the uppermost window, I saw the figure of a woman's head. She stood rigid, staring anxiously across the fog-laden street, holding her breath as she waited for another signal that did not come. When we reached the door of the building in House Street, a man in a heavy overcoat and muffler was leaning against the railing. As the entrance light fell upon us, he started violently. "Holmes!" he cried. "My word, Gregson!" said my friend, shaking the Scotland Yard detective warmly by the hand. "How delightful! Lovers reunited once more. What wind blows you here?" "The same that brought you, I suspect," Gregson replied. "Though how you arrived at it, I cannot imagine. Let us say we followed different threads to the same knot. I was tracing the signals." "Signals?" "Yes, from that very window there." They ceased abruptly, and we came to investigate. But since you are here, it appears we are unnecessary." "Not at all," Gregson exclaimed eagerly. "I'll freely admit, Mr. Holmes, I always feel the stronger with you beside me. There is but one exit to this building. He cannot escape us. And who might he be? Well, it seems we have beaten you for once, Mr. Holmes." A sharp tap of his cane upon the pavement, a cabman at the far end of the street descended from his seat and approached us. Gregson gestured toward him. "Allow me to introduce Mr. Sherlock Holmes. And this is Mr. Leverton of Pinkerton's American Agency." "The hero of the Long Island Cave mystery," said Holmes with a slight bow. "I am pleased to make your acquaintance." The young American's long, clean-shaven face flushed faintly at the recognition. "I'm upon the greatest case of my life, Mr. Holmes," he said. "If I can lay hands on Gorgiano." "What?" "Gorgiano of the Red Circle. So he has made a name for himself in Europe as well. In America, we know all his crimes. We can connect him to 50 murders, though never with evidence sufficient for conviction. I have followed him from New York and have tracked him here these past 7 days. The moment he makes a misstep, I shall seize him. Mr. Gregson and I followed him into this building. There is but one entrance. He cannot slip away. Since he entered, 3 persons have left the premises, but I swear none was Gorgiano." "Mr. Holmes mentioned signals," said Gregson. "I dare say he knows more than we do." Holmes briefly outlined the matter from our perspective. The American struck his hands together in frustration. "He must have spotted us." "Why do you suppose so?" "The circumstances suggest it. He was signaling to an accomplice. He has many in London. As you said, he broke off just as he was warning his people of danger. Either he glimpsed us from the window or perceived some other threat and was compelled to act at once. What other explanation is there? What is your view, Mr. Holmes?" "My view is that we go upstairs immediately and see for ourselves. But we have no warrant. He is exhibiting suspicious behavior in a vacant flat." Gregson interjected. "That suffices for now. Once we have him, we can determine whether New York can furnish grounds for detention. We arrest him at once. I take responsibility. Official detectives may lack brilliance, but they are seldom deficient in courage." Gregson ascended the stairs toward the lair of the notorious killer with the same grave composure he might display at Scotland Yard. Mr. Leverton attempted to pass him, but Gregson firmly elbowed him aside. The dangers of London were for London police to face. The door to the third-floor flat on the left stood ajar. Gregson pushed it open. The interior was utterly dark and silent. I struck a match and lit the detective's lamp. As the trembling flames steadied, the sight before us froze us in place. Fresh blood stained the wooden floor. Bloody footprints led from an inner room toward us. Gregson turned the lamp up fully and flung open the door of the inner chamber. We crowded behind him. A massive man lay sprawled in the center of the empty room. His unshaven, dark face was twisted into a hideous grimace. Around his head spread a dreadful pool of blood, forming a fatal crimson halo. His knees were drawn up, his hands clenched in agony. A knife had been driven deep into his body, the white handle jutting upward toward his thick brown neck. For all his bulk, he had fallen like a slaughtered bull under the force of the blow. Beside his right hand lay a large double-edged dagger with a horn handle, and next to it, a small black child's glove. "By heaven!" cried the American detective. "That is Black Gorgiano himself. Someone has forestalled us. There's the candle from a window, mister." "Holmes," said Gregson, "what are you about?" Holmes had gone to the window, lit the lamp there, moved it forward and back deliberately, then stepped aside. After peering into the darkness, he extinguished it. "That should suffice," he said quietly. While the others examined the body, Holmes stood in thoughtful silence. At last he turned. You said 3 people left the building while you waited below? Yes. You examined them closely? I did. Was one of them a man of about 30, bearded, of medium height? Yes. That description fits the last man who passed me. Then I believe he is the one we seek. I can give you a detailed description. We also possess an excellent impression of his footprint. That should assist you. In a city of millions, Mr. Holmes, such information is of limited value. Perhaps, which is why I have summoned this lady to aid us. At that, all 3 of us turned. A tall and beautiful woman stood in the doorway, the mysterious lodger from Bloomsbury. Pale and trembling, she advanced slowly, her fearful gaze fixed upon the dark shape upon the floor. You have killed him, she whispered. Dio mio, you have killed him. She drew a deep breath and then, to our astonishment, leapt into the air in exultation. She spun about the room, clapping her hands, her eyes ablaze with joy as a torrent of Italian words poured from her lips. It was at once terrible and extraordinary to witness such wild delight at the sight of death. Suddenly she stopped and looked at us sharply. But you are the police, are you not? You killed Giuseppe Gorgiano. We are police, madam. She glanced about wildly. Where is Gennaro, then? Gennaro Luca is my husband. My name is Emilia Luca. We came from New York. Where is Gennaro? He called to me from that window, and I came at once. It was I who called you, said Holmes. You? How could that be? Your code was simplicity itself, madam. I wished you to come, and I knew that sending the single word Vieni would suffice. The woman stared at Holmes in astonishment. I did not understand how you knew these things, she said. Giuseppe Gorgiano. How did it happen that? She broke off suddenly. Her face shone with pride and happiness. Now I see. My Gennaro. My magnificent Gennaro, who shields me from all harm. It was he who did this. He who struck down a monster with those strong hands. Ah, Gennaro. What woman is worthy of such a man? Gregson, with unfortunate bluntness, seized her wrist as though she were a common street offender. I do not fully understand who you are, he said, but your words are sufficient to take you to the station, Mrs. Luca. One moment, Gregson, said Holmes calmly. If we proceed with courtesy, I am certain the lady will explain all she knows. Madam, you understand that your husband may be arrested and tried for killing the man who lies there. Your statements may serve as evidence. If you believe he acted without criminal intent and wish that to be understood, the greatest service you can render him is to tell us everything, exactly as it occurred. Now that the man called Gorgiano is dead, we have nothing left to fear, she said firmly. He was a monster, a devil. No judge on earth would punish my husband for killing such a creature. Then this is my proposal, said Holmes. Let's leave the room precisely as it stands and lock the door. We shall all repair to the lady's residence and hear her account in full. After that, we may decide our course. Half an hour later, the 4 of us sat together in Signora Luca's modest sitting room, listening to the grim and sinister history of which we had already witnessed the closing chapter. Though she spoke English fluently and with speed, her choice of words and construction were at times unusual. For the sake of clarity, I render her account in more natural form. I was born at Posillipo, near Naples, she began. My father is Augusto Borelli, a legal advisor who once served in Parliament. Gennaro worked in his office. I fell in love with him, as any woman might. But though Gennaro was handsome, strong, and full of spirit, he possessed neither wealth nor influence. My father forbade our marriage, so he fled. We were married in Bari, sold my jewels, and sailed for America. That was 4 years ago. Since then we had lived in New York. At first, fortune favored us. Gennaro rescued an Italian gentleman from ruffians in a district called the Bowery and was afterward given employment by him. The man was wealthy and influential. Tito Castellot, senior partner of the firm Castellot and Zamba, the largest fruit importers in New York. As Senior Zamba was elderly, the business was conducted almost entirely by Castellot. He placed my husband in charge of a department and showed him constant kindness. Castellot was unmarried and regarded Gennaro almost as a son. We, in turn, loved him as a father. We furnished a small apartment in Brooklyn and looked toward the future with hope, until the dark cloud rose upon our horizon. One evening, Gennaro brought home a compatriot, Gorgiano, also from Posillipo. You have seen his body. You know his size. Everything about him was vast. His frame, his gestures, his passions. When he spoke, rather, when he roared, our little rooms seemed to tremble. His arms swung like the branches of a wind-torn tree. His thoughts and emotions were monstrous in scale. One could only listen in fear as his burning eyes dominated the room. He was terrible, magnificent in a dreadful way. Thanks be to God, he is dead. He began to visit frequently. My husband took no pleasure in his presence. Gennaro would sit silent and strained while Gorgiano discoursed endlessly on politics and social revolution. Though my husband said nothing, I knew him well enough to perceive a new expression in his face. At first I believed he merely disliked the man, but soon I understood it was far more than dislike. It was fear, a deep, consuming fear. One night, seeing that terror in his eyes, I implored him, for the sake of our love, to conceal nothing from me. He obeyed. My heart froze as he spoke. In his youth, during a period of restless idealism, Gennaro had joined a secret society in Naples, an offshoot of the Carbonari, known as the Red Circle. Its oaths were terrible, its secrets sacred, and once admitted, no man might leave it alive. When we fled to America, he believed himself free. Imagine his horror when he recognized in New York the very man who had initiated him into that brotherhood, the giant Gorgiano, known in southern Italy by the name of Death. Having escaped the Italian police, Gorgiano had already established a branch of the society in New York. That very evening, Gennaro received a summons marked with a red circle at its head, commanding his attendance at a meeting. Our situation was grave, but worse was to follow. I had noticed that whenever Gorgiano visited, his eyes rested upon me, even while speaking to my husband. One evening, when Gennaro was absent, he forced his way into our home. He seized me in his arms and pressed me against his chest like some monstrous beast, begging me to flee with him. I struggled and screamed until Gennaro returned and threw himself upon him. With a single blow, that brute fell my husband and fled. But from that moment, we had a mortal enemy. A few days later, my husband attended the meeting. I knew from his face when he returned that something dreadful had occurred. The Red Circle financed itself by blackmailing wealthy Italians, threatening violence if payment were refused. Their latest target was our benefactor, Castellot. He had defied them and gone to the police. They resolved to make an example of him. At the meeting, it was decided that his house should be destroyed with dynamite. Lots were drawn to determine who would execute the deed. Gennaro saw the hideous grin upon Gorgiano's face as he reached into the bag. There was trickery, of that I am certain. For when he withdrew his hand, it held the paper marked with a red circle, the symbol of death. My husband must either murder his best friend or face vengeance upon himself and me. The society's cruelty extended to the loved ones of those who resisted. That is why Gennaro returned home in anguish. We did not sleep that night. By morning, we had resolved to flee. The deed was to be done the following evening, but by midday, we were on our way to London. Before departing, we warned our friend and supplied the police with all we knew. The rest you know. We were certain our enemies would follow like shadows. Gorgiano was relentless, cunning, and pitiless, more so once personal hatred was added. His skill in murder was notorious in both Italy and America. Gennaro spent the few days we had before discovery securing a refuge for me. He himself remained at liberty to communicate with American and Italian authorities. Even I did not know where he lodged. We spoke only through the newspaper advertisements. Once from my window, I saw 2 Italians watching the house. Thus we knew Gorgiano had traced us. At last, Gennaro signaled that he would communicate from that building opposite. The signals were warnings, and then they ceased abruptly. Now I understand. He must have known Gorgiano was upon him. Thank God, my brave husband was not unprepared. Tell me, gentlemen, is there any reason we should fear justice? Is there any judge in the world who would condemn Gennaro for what he has done? The American detective turned to Gregson. I do not know how you English handle such matters, he said, but in New York they would thank this lady's husband. Gregson cleared his throat. You must come with me to headquarters and repeat your statement to my superiors. If your account is confirmed, neither you nor your husband have much to fear. What puzzles me, Mr. Holmes, is how you came to be involved at all. Education, Gregson, education. I do not yet consider myself graduated. He turned to me with a faint smile. And you, Watson, have another curious and tragic specimen for your collection. It is not yet 8 o'clock, and Wagner is being performed at Covent Garden. If we are prompt, we may yet catch the second act.